Welcome to the Nerd Culture is Dead podcast. I'm your host and thoroughly a nerd, Zach. Today I am joined by Jennifer, if she wants to say hi real quick.
Hi, real quick. Were you expecting something better?
No, this is all I wanted in life and more. We're going to be talking about the 2022 Megacon convention that we attended recently, and let's go ahead and talk about it.
Well,
We went.
we did go.
All 4 days.
We did. So, we stayed in a shitty hotel. That was our fault. That's on us. Conveniently, it was across the street from the concourse, because they moved it to north-south this year, as opposed to west, which I think is where it's been a lot of the past previous years.
Maybe the last 2 or 3 cons, because obviously pandemic stopped them from doing it for a while, but last year it was in west, and I know the last time I went, it was also in west.
I prefer it in north-south. I think it runs... I don't necessarily know that it runs better, but I think convenience-wise for most of the hotels and just... I think it looks nicer in north-south. I think it runs better there.
I like the way it flows in north-south, but oddly enough, I think for the hotel's argument, the west concourse is a little bit closer to Icon Park, and I think has a few more hotels that are actually directly connected. So I think west is superior in terms of like hotels, but I think efficiency for the convention, if they didn't have, an entire half of the convention center dedicated to lines for entry, it would be fine. But instead they crammed all the vendors in this tiny space and then had half of the normal floor dedicated to the autograph and celebrity section.
For what, this year?
Yeah.
That's how they always do it.
Yeah, like I'm saying, if they did it differently, I'm sure it'd be better. Because, I'm sure there's a better way of doing it.
I mean, I'm sure there's always a better way of doing it. But, with the space that they had, that's pretty standard what they do. I think most of the cons, they have the ticket area, then they have the vendor hall in the biggest area that they can put them in, and then they have a whole part of the vendor hall that's just strictly fan service.
Yeah, but I don't think they needed to take that whole area for tickets. They could have cut that in half.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree, but that's how they do it every year. That's not new to me.
Yeah, but I think it could be better.
It could always be better.
I think that's just a general theme with MegaCon is it could be better. That's pretty much how this conversation is going to go. I do prefer it in north-south, though, just as far as the convention center. It's a bit better. You don't have to wait outside trying to get in versus with west, you have to wait outside for the majority.
I feel like with the West, and it could just be the hotels we happen to pick on certain days, but I feel like with West, you're walking further and longer than in north-south.
It just depends. If you're in the Rosen, it's the same walk either way. It's just that with going to west, you have to cross 2 more streets, so it feels longer.
It's that that one walk up that fucking hill to bag check when you're in west is a nightmare.
Yeah, especially when you're pulling a 40-pound wagon like I am all the time.
Yeah. Although I will say that wagon is better than
carrying
having to carry it all, yeah.
No, I completely agree. But, I mean, as a whole, I prefer north-south. I think there are just better ways of them managing the space, and that's my only complaint with the convention center itself.
Well, if you want to talk about that, I don't think that's the convention center. So, a couple years back, I want to say it was 5 or 6 years ago now, it was owned by a single person, and now it's owned by a big boy corporation. So, back when it was a single person, the con as a whole ran a lot smoother, and now that it's a big boy corporation, it's a lot shittier run. I don't know how one person manages to do everything better than a fucking group who should be doing it all the time, because that's not on the convention staff, convention center. That's on the people who are running the event themselves.
Well, yeah, and I don't think I'm blaming the convention center. I'm talking about how the potential in north-south is far greater than that of the west concourse. They could do a much better job in north-south than they do in west, but oddly enough, when it's in west, it's run better.
I don't know. I think it has strictly to do with the people running it. Like I said, I think the big boy corporation is just not as good as the single.
Yeah, but it was run by the mega corporation like last year,
yeah,
and
it
it
was like,
ran better in West than it did in North South. And I think that's kind of we're gonna go ahead and push into vendor hall now, but one of the biggest things to talk about here is just how redundant the things are in that convention center. Like, how many repeat vendors did you see of, like, Misty Mountain Gaming or, like, the sword booths?
Well, that's because... So they rejected over 500 vendors, because a lot of what it is people reapplying from last year. Because that's what they take the people who've been there before.
Yeah,
and
they've got
they
seniority.
Yeah, they pre-accept all of them. And so getting in is hard. But they also, for whatever fucking reason, instead of allowing more people in, they're like, oh, you want 2 booths in separate locations? We'll do it. Like, Wild Bill's makes sense. Wild Bill's makes sense to have a couple ones. That way it's spread out. People can go in, get their drinks. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Something like, the posters and t-shirts and, like, it's one is fine, I think. I mean, I can understand having, like Critical Hit Gaming Supplies. They had 3 booths. But that's because they paid for 3 booths, and it's just a bigger 1 booth section as opposed to a bit here and a bit there and a bit there,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just tired of seeing the same booth on each end of the convention center and one hidden in the middle. I think that if there was a larger variety of shops at Megacon, I'd be more inclined to spend more money. But as it stands, when I walked the convention center, if I did a quarter of the convention center, I did the entire rest of it, besides Artist Alley.
And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the vendors they're accepting in.
I think they could totally go for a larger variety, because, like, look at where they ended up using most of their space, right? A lot of that was in the community area, which they had a big Star Wars pit. They had, like the little robots from Doctor Who. They had a little bar set up for, like, dragon's milk.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of random little things like that, but I think they only went up to aisle 6,000 for normal vendors before it went into Artist Alley. They could have extended that over.
I thought Artist Alley started at about 6 or 7, yeah.
And then Artist Alley only took up half the space, and then the rest of that was all for celebrity autographs and stuff. Normally that section's a lot smaller.
Artist Alley or celebrity?
Celebrity.
No, it's not. It's honestly, I feel like it's normally bigger. I think they had less celebrities show up this year than they've had in the past.
Then what are they filling in all that space with? Because there's clearly something missing. Because it just does not feel as big as it used to.
I don't know. I disagree. I think it's always felt that big. I think maybe spacing has been different. I don't know.
That could be it. They could still be adhering to pandemic spacing. Because I remember at minimum there was 6 feet in between each stall.
I don't recall this.
Well, look.
Because, like, they weren't enforcing masks or anything. So, I mean, I'm sure their capacity was limited a little bit. I don't think they were running at 100%.
Well, I'm just saying, like, look at the spacing between the booths. Like, they had social distancing signs set up. They could have been, limiting the amount of space in between the stalls to make up for people trying to be more distance apart. Mm-hmm. Granted, that doesn't work at all because it's MegaCon and people are packed shoulder to shoulder the entire way.
Mm-hmm. I know attendance-wise, they were definitely not as high as they normally are.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, even Saturday was nowhere near what they used to be.
Well, and this is the weird thing is, like, think about our MegaCon room at Werewolf. Last year, we had a 2-village game of 75 people.
I really think we only had 50, because I think we've never gone over 50 on that, but I have other people telling me otherwise.
No, I guarantee it was higher, because I remember the entire sheet being filled out, and I was having to put in a second sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had a room that was, twice as large at West.
Oh, we had 2 proper rooms,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to having to go get the wall to divide it.
Yeah, I remember having to grab so many tables for you last year.
Mm-hmm. I fucking running that game when it's in 2 actually different rooms. I have to fucking...
Yeah, you're running between rooms.
I will say, having it in the divider there makes it easier for me to run to Village.
But I think... It's not that there are less people, it's that people are less attentive to the outside space besides the vendor hall because of the lack of variety in, say, panels. I remember several years ago when I used to go with my older friend group, there were way more panels.
Yeah, I feel like there were a lot more panels in past years than there were this year. And I don't know if that's still pandemic stuff. Like, I'm sure that's a fair point as to why they weren't as busy this year, because I'm sure some people are still, pandemic situation, which is totally fine. But I wonder if that's the case with some of the panels and stuff too, because they did not have as many as it seemed like they have.
Well, I even remember a few years ago, like the actor for Darth Sidious or Emperor Palpatine was at the convention center, and he had a panel that was like 2 full rooms. And he was like on a stage, and there was lines of chairs, like it was 30 chairs each, and it went back like 12 rows.
Well, and I heard some of the people who went to like some of the comedy shows and stuff were saying that they should have had a lot more seating than they did, and they were packed to the brim, and it wasn't like a big enough room for this kind of stuff too.
Do you think Megacon's just outgrown the Orange County Convention Center?
No, I think it's poor planning.
You just think that the staff that runs Megacon isn't adhering to the amount of people that are showing up, and they're just trying to cut corners to make more money?
I mean, it's a possibility. I just think it's poor planning on assuming what will and won't attend. I don't know. I figured they've been doing it for so long, they would figure it out by now.
It's been several years, yeah.
It's been many, many years, yeah. I, myself, have been attending for 10 years.
Let's see. As far as talking about the convention center as a whole and how the show was ran, the stars that showed up, or the celebrities that showed up, was not that great.
You got Brendan Fraser.
He was like the biggest name.
You got the cast of Clerks. You got most of the Hobbits from Lord of the Rings.
All of the Hobbits.
Okay, all of the Hobbits. I'm thinking there were more people. All of the Hobbits from Lord of the Rings. And I think that was... And you got some wrestlers. That was more or less it. There wasn't a lot of other big names in there from what I remember.
Yeah, because like you had the voice actors from like the Clone Wars. You had Fry.
But like normally...
A few anime guys.
Normally they have more face actors as opposed to voice actors, I feel like.
Well, I think the 2 biggest ones were the lead from Firefly and Brendan Fraser.
Oh, and the kid who played Neville in Harry Potter was there.
Neville Longbottom, yeah. But the only one who had a panel, I think, was Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, I know Brendan Fraser had a panel. I don't think Clerks had one. They had all the photo ops. They didn't have a panel from what I saw, unless I missed it.
I think this is an entirely missed opportunity by the convention center. Is one of the biggest things about Megacon that really drove a lot of people to continue going was being able to hear the celebrities talk and do it in a public forum. We loved that.
Well, hear me out. So if you want to go meet a celebrity, get an autograph, take a picture, blah, 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 you pay money. I don't know how much it is. I've never done them. But if you go to the panel and hear them talk about the show they're in or the movie or whatever, that's free. So I will say that right there is a deciding factor on my end, at least. But, like, it's good to hear them talk about something and you actually go in and watch them for an hour, half hour, as opposed to 30 seconds with a picture that I paid $50 for, you know?
Yeah, I remember a while ago, we went to the Sean Schemmel, Chris Sabat panel back when Dragon Ball Resurrection F, the movie, was coming out, and they were all at the Orange County Convention Center for Megacon, because they always are. Sean Schemmel and Chris Sabat are always at Megacon, voice actors of Goku and Vegeta.
I went to a fairy tale panel, the guys from Funimation. It was like 4 of them, and they all talked about fairy tale for a while.
But, no. Chris Sabat wasn't in this panel. It was the entire cast of Animaniacs and Sean Schemmel for some reason. And it was real weird because they were just being bros and talking about how good they are. Like, they were complimenting each other for a while, and it was real cool. And then one of the guys sang the, Animaniacs, country song where he, listed, all of the countries. It's real cool. But it's stuff like that you don't get to see unless you give these guys panels, because they can talk all day and they'll draw in crowds.
Yeah, it's almost like that's what they do for a living.
Like, I would really spend money at Megacon if I had the opportunity to do so. I don't care if it's like a $5 entry for a panel. I would pay $5 to see this.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, even like panels, as far as I'm aware, have never really cost money to attend. I mean, to host and stuff, I'm sure, yeah, but to attend, no. But I mean, people definitely would. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even have time to do any of the panels because we were so busy. For those of you who don't know or are new listeners to the show, Jen and I have, or Jen more specifically, have been running the Werewolf Room at Megacon for quite some time.
10 years.
This is my second year being involved in the room. Otherwise, I've been going to Megacon since 2014 off and on, switching between it and Tampa Bay Comic-Con. But the Werewolf Room is a very, very interesting thing. So, Jen, can you give a brief description of Werewolf?
So, Werewolf is basically, it's a big party game. If you ever heard of Mafia or Town of Salem, it's the same thing, but better. So there are villagers and werewolves, and basically you try to figure out who each other are and kill each other off appropriately. It's a big fun party game. Like, we've been running that for 10 years now, and it's something that we get people coming back time after time. Like, there are people in here I only see at Megacon, and like I see these people in Werewolf, and this is I've had people say, this is what I came to the con for. Like, I come here for this. I got recognized outside of the convention of, hey, you run the Werewolf Room at Megacon. Yes, I fucking do. You know how cool that felt to get recognized from that? Like, that's amazing. Like, you build a community there. It's nice. It's great. But no, I mean, it's a fun thing to do, for sure. I don't know what else you wanted me to elaborate on.
Well, I just wanted you to explain what Werewolf was. Yeah, Town of Salem Mafia is a good idea. A social deduction game. A team of villagers versus a small minority of people who are werewolves. The villagers have some powers on their side to help them deduce who the werewolves are, but the werewolves get to kill and eliminate the village strategically in order to lay blame to other villagers. And it ends up being a lying experience where you're trying to illustrate your truth in a way that leads the rest of the people to believe that you are not a werewolf. And it's a very fun game. There are certainly problems with it, but I don't think that the problems with the game outweigh the fun that you have when yelling at your friend from across the room that they're a fucking liar, and then 10 minutes later, like, being totally fine.
I've had people ask us if we run Werewolf at some of the other cons, because if you're listening to this and you run some of the other cons, apparently you guys are trash. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are some shots fired right there. I
could do it better.
I don't know. I like, and this is one of the things that I've been hearing, is like Dragon Con, for example. The way the game is run is it's more of, not of a public forum discussion, but more of a, you walk around and you like make sneaky little comments.
When did this become a werewolf chat? Werewolf podcast?
That's not, but this is one of our discussions. But like, this is part of the convention for our experience.
Mm-hmm.
But at Megacon, you more or less are in a public forum. You're seated the entire time. So any comment that's heard is more or less for the entire group to hear. There is very little secret conversations. Like, you could nudge the person to your side and like maybe make a comment or two, but beyond that, people are going to know you're talking and act suspicious of you because of it. I think that the way that Werewolf is run in Megacon is pretty good. I haven't been to other cons to play their werewolves, so I can't attest to it being superior in any way.
I went to Dice Tower is really the only other experience I have with it. And that's where we took the idea of Two Village from. We went there, they did it, they ran it so badly that I've accepted that we're never going to play at Dice Tower again. But we took the idea of Two Village and improved upon it. Of course, we still have some things to work with and sort out, but we we get much better feedback there than I saw at some of the other places for sure.
Yeah, granted, it's hard to improve upon a game that you only get to play 2 times a year. Two Village, for those of you who don't know, is 2 separate games of werewolf running simultaneously that affect one another. And so, because it requires such a large number of people, normally about minimum of 50 people.
We cap it at 50. We played at 50s.
Okay, you played at 50 this year.
Every year.
Nope.
Every year.
We were just discussing about how you've gone beyond this.
I really feel like we didn't.
Either way. 50 people is a lot to coordinate, and so there's 3 dungeon masters involved in a live action game like this. And it requires a lot of thought and process, and to balance out the game so it's not just one-sided towards a majority. You have to do a lot of work in that, and that ends up being a pretty good sum of work, I would say.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's fun. It's worth it. Like I said, we get good feedback.
Yeah, and we get custom roles put in there that make the game more interesting, but that's enough about Werewolf. It's one of the many parts of the machine that makes Megacon a good experience. I think that we should talk real quick about our feelings about the convention over the last few years and just where we're at with it. So I would rate this year's Megacon as a C. It was a good con, don't get me wrong. There are some things about it that I really liked, but I feel like the vendor hall lacked variety. There wasn't enough panels. In fact, I think there was 2 panels the entire con. There just wasn't enough to do to sustain me for all 4 days and make me really want to come back every single day and attend the convention. And I think that's the problem that Megacon suffers right now is lack of variety and lack of options to keep yourselves entertained. I think they cater towards the Saturday day or the Saturday only convention attendee.
I don't disagree with you. They definitely obviously have more stuff to do on Fridays and Saturdays than like Thursdays. Like, come here, set up, and you're good. There's not really a lot to do Thursday. Sunday, the only thing to do is go get all the deals in the vendor hall. So really, Friday and Saturday are what they cater towards. Even like the after parties, for example. Like, we were gonna go to the after party. It's $30 just to get in, and that's not including drinks or anything else you want to do. Like,
imagine going to a pop-up club that is a $30 cover, and you don't get any drinks. There's no benefit to it whatsoever versus just going down the road a mile and not having to pay a cover.
I don't know, and like, I think the opening party this year was at Ice Bar. And I've been to Ice Bar once. It was cool for a minute, but it was
Ice Bar's tiny.
Underwhelming.
It's just,
Ice Bar is hyped up more than it needs to be.
Yeah, Ice Bar's tiny. That's the problem.
And I don't know how they managed to do a opening event party there.
No, there's no way. I'm sure it's lines at the door for the hundreds of thousands of people.
At least the other one's at one of the big hotels. Like it was at the Rosen. The Rosen's a big boy hotel that can handle that many people.
Yeah, it's got a conference center.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's interesting. It's not bad. I think C sounds solid with me too. In pretty much most of all the same reasons, really. Most of my time is spent in Werewolf because I run it every year, so I don't really have a lot of external information.
I just like to compare it to like former years at the convention. And that's where I get my basis is, I'm not sure if it's just anchoring bias, but I have a very favored opinion of Megacon around 2014, 2016. And I think those are the years that I felt it was in its prime. It was still in north-south at the time before it got scaled back to west.
Yeah, and it was a different owner.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there was just a large variety of things to do. I remember there being a video game arcade cabinet room. There was a Dungeons & Dragons room where they had vendors in the rooms with the game. So you didn't, like, say, for example, you forgot your dice, or you didn't think you were going to play Dungeons & Dragons at a convention, so you needed to buy dice. Instead of spending 30 minutes walking down to the vendor hall, grabbing any set of dice, and then running back up, you could buy a set of dice from one of the vendors in the room. So you could do the event and not have to spend 30 minutes of your day just wandering to get a set of dice. Mm-hmm. It was all right there for you. That I liked, versus it's so isolated.
No, I mean, I agree. I've been trying to sell stuff in the werewolf room for fucking years and struggling to do so. So, I understand that. No, for sure, the convenience of having things in certain places is helpful.
Yeah. I know for a fact I'm thinking of the Tampa Bay Convention Center here, but rather than having all of the food kind of lodged into the vendor hall and having a few restaurant options out in the
Out in the regular hallways and stuff.
yeah, out in the concourse hallway.
Uh-huh.
The way Tampa does it is the entire vendor hall is just lodged with vendors, and the food is exclusively out there.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you're not having to fight for food on the vendor hall floor. And I think that would be just a superior change. You could fit more shit.
Well, they did that for a while at a few of them where, like, half of that section is vendor space and then there's another bit off to the side that's all food stand stuff. But then they have they have all of the other food vendors sprinkled in through the hallways. That way you don't have to run all the way out there.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, fucking Papa John's or whatever pizza place it was that was there closed at 6 o'clock. The vendor hall wasn't even closed till at least another hour or two.
No, they were closed at 6:30, and I actually talked to a staff member about that. It's because they ran out of food.
Ah.
Like, they straight up could not serve anyone, so they decided to close early. Some of the other vendors were still open, but Papa John's is the sponsor of the Orange County Convention Center. So whenever you buy, or like whenever you want to buy a soda or a drink, that money goes to the Papa John's. So that's why they like saran wrap the case despite being full of drinks, is all the other vendors can't sell their stuff without Papa John's being present. That's why like the taco place was still open, but because they can't sell drinks, they don't get a lot of the kickback for it.
All right, I did not know that.
Overall, I was having a good time at the Megacon this year.
What was your top moment, top thing?
Getting a discount at Critical Hit Gaming Supply, our new favorite dice vendor. I bought these dice that were caltrop dice, where they have like pointed edges to like spikes sticking out of the ends of the dice.
Yeah, you want to murder somebody, so how you do it.
And they're full metal, like real heavy dice. I got a $25 discount on them.
That's just because we know the owner.
Yeah, and then I got like a $15 discount on a chainmail dice bag for my other metal dice.
Yeah, no, they're real good. Critical Hit Gaming Supplies is super cool. Shout out right there. My highlight, I think, they in the vendor hall, in that first corner from the south side, they had a human claw machine situation set up, where basically it was free to do it. All you had to do was sign up for their app, or I don't know what it was. I wasn't paying attention.
It was a marketplace app that you could sign up for on their website, and you got to go and be a human crane.
Yeah, so basically they'll strap you in, like if you were to go any of the like air courses, just any of that stuff where you get a full harness, they strap you in and they lift you up into a crane where you are then blindfolded and dropped into a crane like you were the claw on a claw machine, and you won whatever item you happen to grab. You can grab one per thing, don't go crazy with it because it's all free stuff. So I went in and I got, I think it was like a, what is it, Daisy Duck, Daffy Duck,
Daisy Duck.
Daisy Duck. I won that and I gave it off to one of the kids. But it's a fun little activity.
It was real cute.
It was cool.
Got a video of her doing it.
I'll have to put that up. I'll post it.
Real quick, let's talk about the cosplays we saw. Lots of Moon Knight and lots of Playboy bunny suits. That was what I saw. Lots of butt.
Not as much Deadpool as in past years. Normally there's more Deadpool.
Less Harley Quinn.
Yeah, a little less Harley Quinn. I still saw a fair amount of them. A little less.
Genshin Impact cosplays were all over the place, though. I think that's pandemic, though, because it's a free game.
I know nothing about this. I know I had a friend who did the Squid Games thing, and he was like, yeah, I really thought this would be more popular this year, but it didn't seem to be.
Yeah, less Demon Slayer as well, which is weird. I figured we'd see more Demon Slayer with how popular that is. Less My Hero.
Yeah, it's a lot less My Hero.
A lot less anime cosplays in general. I think we're finally seeing a return back to the comic cosplays taking superiority rather than the anime cosplays.
Oh, I think some of that has to do with where Marvel's at right now, too.
Yeah, I was seeing a lot more DC than Marvel, really. Like, I saw a lot of fucking Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange cosplays and Moon Knight for Marvel, but I saw a ton of Teen Titans cosplays or like Nightwing and shit like that. A few Batmans, very few Star Wars, which is weird because normally Star Wars has a pretty good presence in Central Florida.
I don't really remember seeing too much Star Wars just in general the past few cons.
I always see that guy doing his really good Darth Vader. I normally see the Wookiee. The Wookiee wasn't here this year. There was a few good Stormtroopers. Not many Dragon Ball cosplays. Really, this was a pretty tame year for cosplay. There wasn't a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there was a big hit fad going on at the time. Like all the prior years before the pandemic, we had like a big media event to try and get people to do things. So like Suicide Squad made people wear Harley Quinn, or Deadpool coming out back in like 2016 made people buy a bunch of Deadpool cosplay. But I don't think there was a big event to try and drive that forward right now.
I have a low point of the cosplay. Or not the cosplay, the con. So, I don't know if it was just me, but like, normally, I am freezing the entire convention. This year, I don't know if they just didn't turn on the AC, but it was much hotter this year than it's been in the past.
Yeah. Normally isn't quite as hot as it is, but it was hot for the majority of the con. Sunday, oddly enough, felt comfortable until I started freezing for whatever reason.
Sunday was the coldest of the days.
But like Thursday, we were like sweating through our shirt. Friday was okay. Saturday was still very hot. And Sunday was good.
Yeah, Sunday they turned on the AC.
I'm sure the AC was on. It just took several days for it to cool the building.
I don't know. It just seems odd. Like normally when it's in West, it's much colder. It seemed real weird.
Well, it's also a smaller convention center.
I guess, but you figured it's a convention center. They'd have enough power and stuff to heat and cool it appropriately.
Yeah, I think they need to do a little more for the con to continue to succeed. Otherwise, people are just going to buy online and stop showing up to the con.
I'm still going to show up to the con.
No, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm sure we will, but I'm speaking for the average like consumer here. Like, what could you find at Megacon that you couldn't find online? Artwork? Like, that's all I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you.
Like, even for things like the Werewolf Room, like, if you could fucking buy Town of Salem for free on Steam.
It's not the same.
It's not, but it's very similar.
It's not the
And
same.
you know what? Free versus paying $40 to get in and do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally different. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Final grade for Megacon, like I mentioned earlier, C. Jen, do you have any closing thoughts?
Nothing that wasn't already said. Everyone can always do better. I think everything can be better. But I don't think it's bad. I still enjoy going. I'm still going to keep going every year. So, yeah. More panels. Do some more panels.
More panels. Alrighty. Jen, do you want to go ahead and plug our social medias?
It is plug time. So you can find both Zach and myself at Nerd Culture is Dead on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Twitch. We have an email address if you want to shoot us some questions. We are working on a website, so I might post that here soon. So, yeah.
Alrighty, folks. Well, thank you for joining us. It was a wonderful time as always. Don't get too sweaty walking around the convention center, and have a good night.
Bye.